All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May 3rd CAAB meeting. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a busy agenda today. My name is Melanie Green, and I am the board chair, and I will turn it over to Rebecca for introductions.
Good morning. We will do roll call. We'll start with Alicia Topper.
Good morning, everyone. Present. I'm representing the elected officials.
Good morning. Amy Rourke.
Good morning, Amy Rourke, and I am for, oh my goodness, I can't even think. I know it's District 1 for the community. Sorry, I'm going to blank right now.
Nope, community rep.
There we go. Sorry.
Chris Holum.
Yes, hi, Chris Hullum, representing District 3 for low-income housing.
Councilor Diana Perez.
Hello, everyone. Diana Perez, Vancouver City Council member. Pleasure to be here.
Joyce Cooper. Joyce, are you able to unmute and introduce yourself?
It's early. Representing District 5 elected officials.
Good morning. Karen Kameroff.
Morning, Karen Kameroff, low-income representative for District 2.
Megan Mulsaw.
Good morning. I'm present, and I am the low-income representative for District 4.
And in the room, we have Bridget McLean.
Good morning, Bridget McLean. Representative District.
We also have Rob Perkins.
Hello, Rob Perkins, elected representative District 3. There's District 4 elected representative about what year?
We don't currently have a District 4 representative at this time, but we are trying to fill that role. We also have, it looks like Jamie Spinelli has been able to join us online. Jamie, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning. I'm Jamie Spinelli, and I am the low-income rep for District 1.
Fantastic. And for staff, we have Janet Snook, myself, Rebecca Royce, Michael Torres. We also have finance staff with us today for our report. Alyssa Page is joining us. Rhonda will be joining us shortly. And we have several guests doing presentations and interested in the workings of the CAAB. With that, I'll turn it back over to and let Melanie introduce herself. You're on mute, Melanie.
Thanks. Good morning, Melanie Green, board chair. Happy to be here. We will get started with the approval of March minutes. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review those minutes, and if we have a motion on the floor or an
Can we get a motion for
a vote?
This is
This
Amy.
is Alicia. I move to approve the minute.
This
Thank
is
you,
Amy.
Alicia.
I second it.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the March CAAB meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, the minutes have been approved. Thank you. All right, so I'll turn it back over to Rebecca. She's going to talk about May being Community Action Month.
Yes, so every year the National Community Action Partnership it's been designated Community Action Month for community action agencies all across the nation. The Community Action Partnership Association puts out a tool kit for us to use that has lots of social media blasts and a proclamation. So keep an eye out on the county's social media pages for some of those social media discussions about community action and the work that we do across the nation through these agencies because of the Community Services Block Grant. We will be doing, or we've asked the county council to do a proclamation for the month, and that should be happening at their May 16th meeting. Melanie will be there to accept the proclamation on behalf of the board. If you're interested, that is the evening meeting for the county council. It'll start at 6 p.m. and proclamations are typically in the beginning of the meeting. So we'll have that done. And then again, we have our communications folks working on doing some social media posting to get the information out into the community as we celebrate May and community action.
Great, thank you. And we have some task force updates if we can hear from Amy and then Rebecca.
Okay, let's see. Well, there's 4 million for the community service block grant. Am I supposed to, Rebecca, do you want me to read down this or what? Is that what I'm?
Just a brief overview of what was approved in there. If you know budget numbers, that's fantastic. That community service block grant is the additional proviso dollars that we received, a special one time, and it sounds like they've approved to continue that budget. And that will be going through the state. I know there's quite a few other legislative bills that passed regarding housing and other poverty initiatives. Do you have notes on those ones, Amy?
I have the one from WACAP. Yeah, here. That would be the, let's see. Thanks. Okay, there was 400 million for housing trust fund, 150 million for the new convenient, what is that word? Home ownership program, 23.5 million increase for the HEN program, 45.6 million to increase homeless service contracts. Let's see. I know that the dental therapy bill went through. That was a good one, but that wasn't about housing. Let's see, the TANF and related benefits, funding to raise the resource limit for cash grant eligibility, implements a 500 earned income disregard, and eliminates the 60-month time limit for TANF families without an eligible adult. Additionally, the budget adds a diaper benefit of $100 per month for TANF families with children under the age of 3. And then the ABD recoveries funding provided to implement House Bill 1260, work limiting disability, which eliminates DSHS garnishment of a portion of the supplemental security income lump sum payment received by ABD participants effective October 2025. So that would mean they wouldn't have to pay it back, right? Rebecca?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And I know there's some other ones. Could you help me? The ones I might have missed that were important here?
You know, I don't have the list in front of me,
Oh, okay.
unfortunately, but there are quite a few bills. And if you are not connected with the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, they do a really good job of tracking bills that are related to housing and homelessness. And then the Washington State Community Action Partnership does a really good job. They also follow things that are related to housing and homelessness, but expand it to more anti-poverty initiatives. So the information around TANF, that dental therapy, and things like that will also be covered with the Washington State Community Action Partnership legislative updates that they provide. And anyone can sign up for either one of those listservs to get that information.
I have a question.
Okay. Is that it? I'm like, is that, I don't, do you want me to go into these other ones?
Is there any others that you think are pertinent to the work that the Community Action Advisory Board is doing?
Oh, I'm sure there is. Can we follow back around to me? I'm like, would that be okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds
Okay.
like Rob has a question.
Oh yeah.
The revenue report contains some of this information?
No.
No, okay, that's it.
What did he
Yes.
say?
So Rob was asking if the revenue report that is being provided today discusses any of this, and the revenue report is what the county has already received, not is what is projected to be received. So I can talk about the Community Needs Assessment Task Force and the work that we're doing there to give Amy a moment to see if there's anything else that she'd like to provide in her update. The survey was released and open for 90 days. We actually just closed at the beginning of this month. We gave some a little bit of extra time for people to fill out the survey. We're now collecting those. Janet is doing a great job of entering those online, the hard copies that we've received online into the database so that we can then send the information to a consultant to review the data. I'm currently researching consultants to get bids for that work so that we can meet county procurement requirements around that. And then the next step will be to send that data to the hired consultant. We're asking them to look for bias within the responses, trends that they might see, anything that might pop out to them as interesting or things to note around the data that we've received. Unfortunately, I don't have any idea what numbers on how many surveys we received because we're still getting them in from the providers, but it does look like the numbers are down compared to the last community needs assessment, but it should hopefully still be up over 1,000 surveys received. I'll have more information about the surveys and we'll start looking at the demographic and different things, information that we're able to pull out of those surveys at the July meeting. And then we'll start moving towards doing, based on that data, we'll do community forums and focus groups with the work, the help of the Community Needs Assessment Task Force. And that is all the information I have at this time about the CNA.
Great, thank you. Amy, was there anything else you'd like to add?
I almost there. Can we go on for just a second? I'm trying to find.
Okay, and we can, we refer folks to the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance for a really great resource. So, can't find the information you're looking for, we can, is there? Megan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm kind of having a hard time hearing Melanie. Is anyone else?
It just started for some reason. I'm not sure why.
I noticed
Okay.
it too.
Okay, how about now?
Just sounds like you're far away. That's all.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know where my mic is. Okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me better now?
It's still far away.
Still far
It's
away.
almost like your earplug or earbuds have disconnected.
I don't have earbuds in. Sorry about that.
It sounds okay for me. I can hear you all right.
Okay. I can go get my earbuds when we have a quick moment. So I'm going to turn over to Rebecca to talk about HB 1277, and then we're going to hear information from Kayla.
Hi, yeah, no, I just wanted to do a quick introduction of Kayla Williams. She is one of our newest program coordinators here in the Department of Community Services, specifically in the CHAD unit, our Community Housing and Development Unit, which is where Michael's our manager and I'm one of the program coordinators. So I just wanted to do a brief introduction. As we work through the new funding that Kayla's about to talk about, I anticipate her participating and providing updates to the CAAB in the future. So hopefully you'll see her face again. And with that, Kayla, thank you so much for being here. And if you'll provide an overview, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Rebecca. Alrighty. So like Rebecca said, I'm Kayla Williams. I'm the program coordinator who is going to be overseeing the Eviction Prevention Rental Assistance Program. This program will be funded through House Bill 1277, which was part of the legislation passed in 2021, requiring that an additional surcharge of $100 is collected for each qualifying housing-related document recorded. These document recording fees are not allocated directly to Clark County, but are fully remitted to the state and then distributed as follows. 20% will be used for the operations, maintenance, and services for permanent supportive housing. 2 to 4% will be allocated to the state's landlord mitigation program, and then part of the remaining funds will be used for this eviction prevention rental assistance program. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. These funds will be included in Clark County's CHG and SDG allocation of funding. The Washington State Department of Commerce will award grant funds in a manner that is proportional to the amount of revenue collected from the $100 surcharge within the county. This program will work to prevent evictions by providing resources to households most likely to become homeless or to suffer severe health consequences, or both, after evictions, while prioritizing households disproportionately impacted by public health emergencies, homelessness, and housing instability. At least 10% of the total award needs to be subgranted to organizations that serve and are substantially governed by marginalized populations or by and for organizations. And then at the bottom, we have a link that's included here on the slides for the final bill report of House Bill 1277. And then our timeline. So we are currently in the process of designing an RFA specific to these eviction prevention funds received and any additional funds that we are anticipating to receive through June 30th of 2025. By the end of May, notification will go out to the community about the upcoming RFA, with the RFA to be open in June of this year. Review of the applications is set to occur this coming July, and we are requesting that 5 committee members take part in the review process. Program selection and development will begin in August of 2023, with the goal of contracts starting in September. And there may be more to come. We're still early on in the planning process, but this is just a general update as to the plan for the new eviction prevention funds that are coming into our community. And that is all I have for you guys.
And I just wanted to let the board know, this is just a first introduction to these these funds, to give you just kind of a general idea. We will ask for the subcommittee at the July meeting. So that's why this is just information and we're not doing any action items. We wanted to let you know. And we have not done a deep dive into the funds quite yet. So we're not sure how many programs we anticipate to apply or anything like that. So as we learn more, we'll have a better understanding of the additional request of the board who is on that subcommittee to review those applications. We do know that we are looking for 5 committee members. So if you think you might be interested, start thinking about it now, and then we'll make those selections at the July meeting.
Do we have an idea? I'm thinking this too.
So we have a little bit of an idea. The question, if for those online, if they didn't hear, was if we knew how much money we were going to receive. And I believe Kayla has a little bit of that information, but we don't know specifically yet. We have some, we don't know quite yet total amount.
Yeah, so our initial installment was about 4.2 million. And then we anticipate each year coming forward receiving 2 million.
And then those are based on the deed recording fees, just like a lot of our others, where depending on how our markets are doing, they will go up and down. I think the biggest takeaway for this is to know that these are not collected locally and kept locally. It is, everything goes back up to the state and then they send it back. So we take what they tell us is our portion of those funds.
My question is, which state departments of the SHA?
No, it's the Department of Commerce. Commerce is who oversees almost all of our housing, or if not all of our housing funds.
So the Department of Commerce will make rules.
It's already included in our Consolidated Homeless Grant System Demonstration Grant guidelines. So we've already received those guidelines, and that's part of we haven't done a deep dive yet into. So we have a shell idea of what the program is and what it looks like, what some of the requirements are. For example, targeted prevention. It's a targeted prevention model, which means we have to meet certain criterias to be eligible for the program and things like that. But again, we're just getting into it. So we'll know more, and it'll be part of the request for application information when that goes out. And then the subcommittee will also have that information for when they're reviewing the applications.
I'm just here observing today, but I'm curious to know, it sounds like you're wanting to find partners to help distribute the funds when they actually come or will.
Yes.
Yeah.
So correct.
Can you repeat
Yes.
the question?
Yeah, so the question is, how are the funds distributed? The question is, do we do direct assistance or do we work with nonprofits? And so I was explaining that, yes, we work with nonprofits. They'll apply for the funds through a request for application process. And that's how we'll identify our housing partners.
Thank you for the information. Next, I would like to welcome Scott from Janus Youth. He's going to join us and share information about the program. Thank you, Scott.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'm Scott Conger. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the program director for Janus Youth's housing program. And I'm here with my colleague, Kiva Diestra. If you want to introduce yourself, Kiva.
Thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. I'm Kiva Diestra. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the program supervisor for our housing programs.
Thanks. So what we're here to do today is discuss a couple of our programs that we have funded through Clark County and that's involved in the homeless crisis response system, our Bridges and Nest program. But first, what I'll do is a quick overview of Janus in Clark County, and then kind of get into the programs, and then talk about the models that we use, and then we can go through the PowerPoint after that. So, and if anybody has any questions while we're going, feel free to speak up and just ask as we go. I'd like to have this be more of a conversation than presentation. So 12 years ago, Janus was able to come to Clark County we were brought up there to assist 4 homeless youth in becoming housed. And last year we helped 481 youth become housed or maintain housing. So we've grown quite rapidly, and a great deal of that is to Clark County and this board itself with the funding that they've provided. So we have a multitude of different funding sources to help homeless youth either maintain or obtain housing. And 2 of those funding sources are Bridges and Nest, which is funded. The CAAB graciously has funded us over the years through that. So we appreciate all your support. Bridges is a prevention program, much like Kayla was just speaking of, that assists individuals in maintaining their housing, but that also is applicable for youth. HUD's definition of prevention is not only keeping somebody in the apartments that they're in or their place of wherever they live, but also couch surfing, which applies a lot to the youth that we serve. I think, Melanie, you probably know that a lot of youth couch surf. If they get kicked out of their homes, they'll end up on a friend's couch or some other place just hopping around. And HUD's definition calls them housed, which I think we all know that youth are not housed if they're going from house to house to house. So we've been grateful for the county to be able to provide prevention funds for many years to us to assist those youth in obtaining homes of their own. And then we have our rapid rehousing program, Nest, which is for individuals that are actually homeless on the streets or places not meant for habitability. A lot of the work that Janus does involves building trust with youth. A lot of the youth that we serve have not necessarily had trusting relationships with any adults in their life. And the programs that we run start with building trust. The way that works with Janus is we have an outreach team. So we have an outreach team that connects with these youth that are on the streets and develops the relationships so that they feel comfortable and trusting with Janus youth. Then that evolves into, after some time, coming to the drop-in center. We have the Perch drop-in center for youth to come and access to do laundry, get some food, connect to resources, take a shower. And then eventually the hope is to help them access the housing programs. And once we get them into housing, we help them find housing throughout the community. We have a housing navigator that works with landlords across the community to help them obtain housing. The housing navigator is essential to helping youth overcome many of the youth that we serve have barriers, whether that be criminal or lack of rental history or past rent that's due. And the Housing Navigator helps build relationships with landlords to mitigate those barriers so that we can house them even with those barriers. So it's in Clark County is the one that funds the Housing Navigator as well. So we're really grateful for all the opportunity that Clark County has offered us. The Clark County funding that we have through Bridges and Nest is some of the most flexible funding that we have. That allows us to mitigate those barriers and assist the youth and best serve them. We have about, I guess we can kind of go into the slides here, Rebecca. If you want to go to the next slide, that'd be helpful. Thank you. This is our new office. We just got a new office. So we had an office at the Perch, which was the drop-in center over on Columbia and 15th. We were told that the building was going to be torn down. There's a new Seasons going up right next to that. And so we had to find a new office. The day we were leaving the office, the housing programs were leaving the office, we were told that they're not tearing it down. So gratefully, the Perch is still there, but we also have a new office. This is over on Evergreen and Grant. And this is where we run our housing programs out of. We have housing that serves prevention and those that are homeless, like I said, but we also have permanent supportive housing, which is there for those with higher needs and the most vulnerable in the community. And the permanent supportive housing is non-time limited, so they can stay in the program indefinitely. The goal for Bridges and Nest, the two programs I spoke of, is to help youth become self-sufficient. And our goal is to be the last housing service that youth need in the community. Before we were able to start these programs, we saw a lot of youth coming into the Perch, accessing services, and then what we say is graduating into adult homelessness. So we were lucky enough to have the county support us to begin a few housing programs. And the idea is to be the last housing service that youth need so we can stop the cycle of generational poverty. And we have about a 85 to 90% success rate of youth not returning into the homeless youth or the homeless system. So that's really good for the whole community in the sense that just the return on investment, I guess. So, but we also have a few other housing programs that we work with the Vancouver Housing Authority. Rebecca, if you want to go to the next slide, please. This is Cable's Terrace. This is a 28-unit complex to assist youth, either formerly homeless youth or foster youth, and get them out of homelessness and become self-sufficient. We opened this back in 2019, and it's been remarkably successful. Vancouver Housing Authority is now building another complex named Namukas, forthcoming in supposedly July. We all know how that works. It keeps getting pushed back, but it's going to be a 32-unit complex to assist youth off the streets and help them become self-sufficient. Namukas is Swahili for hope. So I'm sure you'll hear around about Namukas. Rebecca, if you'd like to go to the next slide, please. So this is Bridges and Nest from the last 2 years, the numbers that we've heard, we've assisted, and the households and individuals. On the left, you'll see the households. So we assist about anywhere between 10 to 20 households a year, and that equates to roughly around 30 to 45 youth. And again, this is programs that we do intense case management with youth to help them. We use what's called positive youth development to help them identify goals that they have for themselves to become self-sufficient and successful in life. And then our role is to help the youth obtain those goals, whether that be education, employment. There's a myriad of possibilities of what youth want to do, and we help them to do that and to become self-sufficient. So if you'd like to go to the next slide, please, Rebecca. So this is a slide of all the programs that the housing programs that we have in Clark County. And as you can see, the services have gone up year by year. So starting in 2015, we were helping about, let's see, 25 individuals, and then it moved up to 50. And then, like I said, last year we helped about, well, over 300, so 380 individuals roughly. And that is about 280 households. So the services are actually obviously needed. A lot of this, there's quite a bit of these fundings in the last few years are prevention fundings that Kayla was speaking of, the new funding that's coming into the community during COVID. Obviously, a lot of prevention funds were brought into the community, and that was through TRAP and ERAP, and now this new funding that Kayla spoke of. And that's what the Bridges program is, and it's paramount to helping individuals stay in their homes as opposed to becoming homeless and then needing the services. So we're really grateful that the community and county keep releasing these funds to assist youth in staying in their homes rather than having them experience the trauma of becoming homeless and then trying to get them off the streets. So if you want to go to the next slide, Rebecca, please. And I should mention that a lot of the youth that we serve are not just youth. We have a lot of families. Over half the youth that we serve have children of their own. On the far right there, you'll see Kiva's in that picture. That family appreciated her services so much that they named their daughter there. Her middle name is Kiva. So that just says what kind of impact some of the services we provide to the community and to the youth. And like I said, the goal here is to be the last service that these youth need. And we do that with a 90% success rate. And all of this is possible because of the funding that the county has provided us initially. And we now have, the city's always been very supportive too, the city and county. But now we have federal funding and state funding, but the impetus was the county and these funds that the CAAB actually decides whether or not we have, I guess. So we really appreciate all that you guys have allowed us to do, and we are grateful, and so are the youth that we serve. So I don't know. I think that's it. If anybody has any questions, we can go from there.
I will say I am super excited that you guys are in new office space because monitoring the housing programs in the perch upstairs in these tiny, non-air conditioned, like just finding the space to be able to lay out files was like probably the worst part of the monitoring visits that we had. I am so excited for you guys to have a new office space.
Yes. We are very frugal with our money. We try to make it all go to the youth. So and having office space in the perch was beneficial in the sense that the youth would get to know the case managers, the housing case managers, and it could provide that warm handoff from outreach to building the trust to have them come to the perch and then having the trust to access housing programs. So that was beneficial, but yes, we were really grateful to have a new office space too.
This is Joyce. I have a question. On your graph from the 2015 to the 2022, showing the increase, is that new people, or is that continuing? Does that include the people you've helped in the past and are continuing to help?
Right, that's a good question. So most of the programs that we have are up to 24 months. We like to have people come in and out within 6 months. It's a goal. Sometimes it takes that 24 months or even a little longer, depending on the barriers that people have and the behavioral health issues that we have to help them mitigate, or not mitigate, but just help them address and provide resources for. So the majority of these are new each year. And again, a lot of the growth there has to do with the prevention funds that came into the community. But we still have each year, those are mostly new households that we're serving because we try to get them off within 6 months. Sometimes it takes a year or 18 months, but the goal is to have them off in 6 months. So that increase is mostly new people.
I have a question. What kind of need do you see facing the program? My name is Tanis Morris, and I'm a potential CAAB member. I'm here to check it out. But I'm curious about, it looks like you've increased your ability to serve the population. What are the needs still facing you? I mean, or is there still, is there just endless need for your services, I guess?
I think I heard you correctly. I'm sorry. It's a little difficult because the conference room.
Yeah, I can.
Rebecca will help.
Yeah, so
Thanks,
for some
Rebecca.
reason, the speaker likes to pick up my voice over everybody else's. The question is, can you talk a little bit about the need for your services and how it might have changed over time?
Oh yeah, definitely. So the need in the community, one big need that we're seeing currently is with single mothers, and having them get, and that's a great deal of the individuals that we serve are single mothers, and childcare is an incredible issue now since COVID. So having a youth that has 2 or 3 children and getting childcare, and then when one of those children gets sick, the mom has to stay home and may lose a job. And then we all know how childcare works when kids get sick. It's a cycle of continuously getting sick. So we're there to support the single mothers and work with them to help them obtain employment that they can maybe be flexible. So that's a big need that we have currently is single mothers, and helping them maintain that housing. And that's what a lot of the prevention funds that we're utilizing are for. If a mother loses a job because one of their children is sick at home, then they get let go of that job. A lot of times they're able to obtain another job, but there's that gap between, and if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have that extra income. So there's the gap between employment that these prevention funds are able to help assist, keep them in their homes and get them over that hump or that hurdle of not having the funds to maintain that housing that they might have lost if we didn't have these prevention funds. So like I said, again, we're really grateful to have these prevention funds in the community to help people navigate little blips that they may be going through personally.
So Scott, it looks like you've grown your program significantly as funds have increased. As you receive more funding, you've been able to help more people. What I'm curious about is if you have any statistical information or demographic that would speak to the needs that are still out there. I'm sure you've met a significant, you've been able to elevate, your ability to serve, but the number of people you're serving. How do you have information about the needs still out there?
Right. Yeah. Oh, thank you. So we just did a grant. I wish I would have had the exact information, but our outreach team last year made, I think it was 1,800 different contacts, with 700 of those being different individuals. So there's 700 individuals on the streets, homeless youth that could use the service. So yeah, the need it's great. It's beyond our scope, but the need is still out there to serve these youth. Right now, if you call into the housing hotline, it's very difficult to obtain services. It's kind of the luck of the draw sometimes, because, and a lot of the youth that we serve won't even call in to access the housing hotline because they don't trust adults. So the need is out there. Again, this is an approximation because I should have looked at the grant better that we just wrote, but there's 700 different individuals on the streets right now that are homeless youth. Was what our program did last year.
So are you geographically centered downtown? How far away from central Vancouver can you go for outreach?
We go all over Clark County and Cowes County. We have a team up in Cowes County that, it's funny, ironically, we were just asked to start a housing program up there. That I was in a meeting yesterday, and the amount of funding they gave us would be able to help about 4 households a year. So then I had told them that when we came to Clark County, we were asked to help 4 households a year too. So, and last year we helped over 280. So But the outreach goes through Cowles County and Clark County, and into Portland too. So we span the whole area because, as you know, youth travel to find safety and security and wherever they can find a bed.
Would someone in East Vancouver access your drop-in center? Or
I'm
do you
sorry.
have your drop-in center is Columbia? That's 13.
It's not Columbia, yeah, it's downtown. So how would they get there? We provide bus passes and transportation for youth if they won't like to take that. But the outreach provides the connection to the services, and then we can help them get to the services if they choose to do so. And we
All of our, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was just gonna say we go and meet youth where they're at. We don't try to bring them to us, and we provide the services throughout the community to them, so that because we know transportation is an issue for youth, and we want to eliminate any barrier we can to help them obtain services.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, is actually all of our programs are contracted, mandated to meet people where they're at, and to go to the households to provide whatever the services are that are in their contract. So no household is required to go into one specific location. Case managers, outreach providers, they will go out into the field, into the community, to meet people where they're most comfortable meeting for those services.
Yeah.
So, sorry, so what you do basically, I mean, like these ones that don't know about this service, I'm just wondering how, do these people have to contact you guys first for you guys to go out there, or are you guys out there on the street?
Well, our outreach team is out there on the streets meeting them, and then if they choose to engage in services, then we go out and meet them too. Our case managers work in teams of two, and although we have this nice, neat new office, not a lot of people come there. More often, we go and meet people where they are. They have the opportunity to come to the office if they want, but a lot of our case managers are going out and meeting people where they are so that they don't have transportation, to eliminate the barrier of transportation.
So, like, for instance, if I know somebody or somebody knows somebody that there is a youth that is, could they just contact your office then?
Yes. Well, the way to access housing, we have to go through the Housing Solutions Center. There's a centralized intake for Clark County.
So we're expecting the youth to contact them and then they'll contact you? I'm just wondering because I know a couple youths that are, and they're kind of just staying away because they don't want to get involved with CPS and all that stuff. So they're like really out on the trail.
Yes. So that's a great question, because that happens more often than not, that youth don't want to access the services. So we have case managers that go out and meet them and do the assessment for them wherever they are, so that they are off the grid and can stay off the grid. And we don't enter them into anything other than the assessment to get them housed. And then we work with them to help them. And we do, Janice also has, I'm not sure, Amy, if you're talking about youth under the age of 18, I should have specified that.
Yes, I am talking about.
Okay, so these housing programs, because we put people into scattered sites and they sign their own lease, they have to be over the age of 18. So it's 18 to 24 that the housing programs serve. Janice does serve, we do have Oak Bridge, which is a drop-in shelter for youth under the age of 18 if they want to access that. But if youth
what was that again? You said
Oak Bridge.
Oak Bridge, okay.
Yeah, there's a shelter, and then if youth come into the perch, we have a strict confidentiality policy, so we won't tell anyone that they're there. We want to make sure that we can build that trust. We understand that a lot of these youth have been let down by some systems, and we want to help them to build trust to get them off the streets. And sometimes that's just helping them have a warm place to be, to get their feet under them and get a meal and a shower. And then we work with them to help get whatever goals they have for themselves. But that's a good question, Amy, because a lot of the youth that we serve have gone through the system and it's failed them.
Right. And now they're just little runaways on the street trying to avoid getting caught by the police. And it's like, they're not even criminals. They're just trying to not be in an environment that's not safe for them.
Exactly. So we're trying to help them obtain a safe environment for themselves. And a lot of times that's just building that trust with them and then helping them define what a safe environment looks like for themselves, and then helping them reach that kind of goal that they set for themselves.
The age range of the people you serve?
18 to 24 for the housing programs. But Janice works with 12 and up. I mean, Janice as a whole works with them. I think it's 18 or 12 to 24. We are our permanent supportive housing programs, which are non-time limited, work with individuals when they get into the program between 18 to 24, but some of them have, are up in their, can be up in their 30s or indefinitely because it's non-time limited. So
Are the people doing the outreach, are they all adults, or is there any that are 18? Because I've noticed over the years, kids listen to kids more than they listen to adults.
yeah, isn't that the truth? So they are adults, but we definitely have. So a lot of the employees that work for Janice have lived experience. So we want to make sure that they can relate to them, and they're younger. I'm definitely the oldest of the crew. Our staff is young so that people can relate to them. And then we use peer mentors too to help bridge that gap too if there is any issue of trust. But Janice is just known throughout the homeless community as a trusted organization because of the time that we've put in. So that helps with, like, Amy, youth trust youth. So they talk to each other and they'll vouch for Janice. So that's how we help mitigate the trust issue.
If I may, on that same note, we just started a youth action board, not just several years ago, but it's really starting to take off right now where people with lived experience are running that board now and influencing the decisions and fundings that we reach out for and the decisions that we make. It's really cool to see. We just hired someone on to be that permanent leader of that group, and we have 3 solid youth that have lived experience running it as well. So just wanted to add that.
That's a good point.
Awesome.
So you mentioned that you've been here since 2011. Is that just your housing programs? Because I recall the Perch from 20 years ago.
Yes, that's the housing program.
And
So
doesn't work out.
yeah, Janice, I don't know the exact year. So Janice has programs all over the Northwest, but we came to Clark. I can't remember the exact year that Oak Bridge and Oak Grove came up there, but then it transitioned into an outreach program, and you're right. And then the Perch was probably 2008, maybe 2009. And then the housing programs followed shortly thereafter. So it's just been a progression of services that we've been able to provide youth to the community. And a great deal of those services are funded by the county and the city, which we're obviously grateful for.
And they've been good services. Tremendous work that you've done. Thank you.
I'm not, again, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. I think you said thank you.
Yes, I did.
Thank you. We appreciate your support.
So can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. Mike's over there.
Oh,
Looking at you.
I'm
We're not talking.
I just wanted to say Janice has been doing tremendous work, but I would guess over 20 years in this community. Maybe there was tension in Portland, but it's always been good. And the Perch has been an incredible resource for kids. So I used to work with Triple Point in Children's Home Society, and that was the reliable place to go. And it's known and it's trusted. And your services are pretty amazing. So I did say thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That was much more clear. And yes, we love Triple Point and have a great partnership with them. They do wonderful work over there too. So thank you very much. We appreciate that feedback.
All right, well, thank you so much for the presentation and for all the work that you do to support and serve our youth in our community. Can you all hear me better? I got my headphones. Okay,
yes.
perfect.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
thank you,
Thanks,
Scott.
everyone.
Thank you, Kiva. It's great to see you. You're welcome to hang out and hear the rest of the presentation, or if you need to go along with your day, feel free.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. And so next we're going to turn over to the finance team to talk
Actually,
about
Melanie,
oh,
would it be okay if we went back to Amy real quick since we're
sure.
running just a couple minutes ahead of time? And she mentioned that she has some more information for the legislative update.
Absolutely. Great idea.
Okay, I'm back here. Okay, so this is Jay Inslee's favorite phrase, I guess, is go big so people can go home. I haven't heard that one yet. But so anyways, it says, okay, some of the policy lawmakers approved also, would also allow for the construction of different types of homes in neighborhoods that have been in the past exclusively zoned for single family homes. House Bill 1110, commonly called Missing Middle Housing Bill, would require that cities allow the construction of more duplexes and fourplexes in larger cities. The legislation will require that sixplexes be permitted if they're close to transit stops or include affordable homes or affordable units, excuse me. Another bill was House Bill 1337, and this makes it easier for people to build or use accessory dwelling units or ADUs. Those are units people typically have in their basements, above their garages, or in their backyards that are on the same lot as a single family home. They also approved Senate Bill 5045, which incentivizes, I can't read that word. Incentivize renting, whatever. Great. I don't know this word.
Incentivize.
There we go. Renting ADUs to low income families. Another one would be to speed up the permitting process so the construction can begin more quickly. Senate Bill 5290 also passed, and lawmakers approved a homeownership bill, House Bill 1474, to address the lasting impact of racist discriminatory homeownership policies of the past. And let's see, there's a couple more here. They also oh yeah, I had one more, just a sec. Oops. I wasn't as prepared as I thought it was. Okay, and then this one here, back to the meeting the basic needs. So they have eliminated the time limit on the TANF, but for child only cases. See, they smoothed the cliff effect of disregarding $500 of monthly income. They expand access limit to $1,200 to waive the value of one car. Remove the requirements for adults with disabilities to repay their ABD benefits to the state when they are transferred into SSI. Let's see. Okay, and then the working families tax credit. Married filing separately can apply for the working families tax credit and extend the time that folks can claim the credit. We authorized the dental therapy for federally qualified health centers and lookalikes statewide. And that, I think, is what I've got for you.
Amy,
Huh?
was all of that under Senate 5290? Or are we good with number?
No, this is not all under 50. Nope, that was kind of just a brief one of all the ones that we've kind of advocated for and
The Low Income Housing Alliance also has this list?
yes, that well, and the Poverty Action Network, I went off that one too. They had a summary of it, some of theirs.
And I'd like to give just a big thanks to our legislative advocacy committee. I was flooding them with emails from the county's policy, updates to Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, Washington State Community Action Partnership. Anytime they had legislative updates, I was flooding it to them. Action items for them to work on and things like that were all sent to the committee. So I just want to really thank them for the work that they did on behalf of the full board during the state's legislative session. It sounds like we might have another small session coming up, so we might be engaging them again. And then we also know that federal sessions don't really end, so there will be ongoing. If you're interested in being part of this legislative advocacy committee, just let us know and we can get you connected to make sure that you're on those distribution lists.
And I'd also like to say for the working families tax credit, I guess they think about 400,000 would qualify for it, and there's less than 200,000 have applied. So even if taxes are done, we've got till December 31st of this year to be able to apply for it. So they can still do that. So remind people.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, now we'll move on to the finance team with some updates.
Hi, everyone. This is Alyssa Page, and I work at the county at DCS in the finance unit. And the reports we're about to go through are expenditure and revenue reports. For the expenses will be a 6-month report from July to December of 2022. And I'm kind of just going to do a high-level overview of these reports. There's a lot of information. It includes about 50 programs through regular ongoing funding. And when I say regular ongoing, we're referring to non-COVID related funds, which our COVID related funds are temporary and not guaranteed to be ongoing. And then we have 58 COVID funded programs, so a total of 108 programs. So the first report you'll see, and these reports will be available on the DCS website. And if you have any specific questions, comments, concerns, you can reach out to Rebecca or myself, and we can answer those questions for you. So the revenue report, it'll list any state funds, local funds, and then we'll have a section for the COVID funds. We'll have the fund name, the description, the fund type, which will show you the federal, state, or local. And we did break out the local House bill funds. And the reason we are showing you that is because we collect those local funds a year before, and then we use those funds in the following year contracts. Because the market is unreliable, we don't like to do contracts if we don't know how much funding we will actually have available. So currently right now, can you just scroll up a little bit, Rebecca, please? So for example, a little bit more. Right now, that fiscal 2022 revenue we're using for our 22-23 contracts. And then at our annual meeting, you'll see the 23 revenue that we've collected through June of 23 that we'll be using for our 24-25 contracts. And then the grant revenue would be stuff that we get from Commerce or Feds or another type of funder. Are there any general questions about the revenue reports? And then this one starts our COVID funds. And we separated them out because the COVID funds really don't fall on any standard fiscal year. State years run from July to June, federal years run from October to September, and then calendar years are January to December. So some of our COVID funds we get in March and we have a year and a half to spend, or we'll get them in July and have 5 years to spend them. So when we reported the revenue for our COVID funds, this is the total amount that we've received based on the spending periods. Lots and lots of money. And like I said, these will be available. And there's a little description at the bottom of what we just talked about. So the House bill funds are collected at least 1 year prior to allocating in the contracts. And then those are the fiscal years and the months that they run. And 100% of these funds are committed in our 3-year request for application process. Any local funds that are not spent in the current contracts are rolled over, and 100% is committed in the next year's contracts. The majority of our grant related funding, that is use or lose. So that takes priority over our local funds since we are allowed to carry those over. Do you have any questions about revenue stuff? Okay, so then the next report, this is our expense report, and this is July to December of 2022. Again, I'm just going to do a high level overview and you can ask any specific questions to us once you review the reports and look at all the data. It's broken up into the types of services, and I'm going to kind of work left to right, then top to bottom. So in the first column, you'll have the organization in the program, the annual report period, which is the contract period. Then in the green is all of our different funding sources. And I believe we have a legend at the end that explains exactly what these are. So we have state, federal, local funds in this expense report. Over in the blue, it's the contract amount and then the total spent from July to December of 2022, balance remaining, and the percent spent of this contract. And normally, since we're 6 months, that's half the contract, we like to see about 50% of spending. But then again, we will roll over any unused House bill funds into the following year contracts to make sure those are spent out, and our grant funds take priority with spending.
Alyssa, can I step in just for one moment?
Absolutely.
For those of you that are taking a look at the community action programs, there are two that I wanted to highlight because their numbers, their percent spent are quite different than what not around the 50% mark. The first is the Battleground Healthcare Dental Expansion Program. They had, for the first 6 months, not billed any costs to the county for that program because they were really, it's a ground up program for them, working with grant funds to do this type of work, expanding their ability to do that. And they're getting ready. I think they might have now hired a part-time dentist. They do have some staff that they've hired to help with the program, and they've kind of supported some other things, but they hadn't billed us yet. We did receive their first billing, and we've been working with them on that. So we will start seeing billing going for that program. And then, as you've heard me say every year for the last several years, the Share Hunger response, it is already 100% spent out because they bill us first as their grant funds. They get multiple different funding streams for that program. So they bill us first, and then they start working with their others that are not as high priority for spending before they go into their foundation dollars, so the donations that they collect for that program. So that's why they go through that. And we always see them spend out this funding very early in the contract. Thank you, Alyssa.
Yeah, and we are trying to work with more smaller providers that haven't worked with county funds before or new programs. And it does take a little bit longer for technical assistance and the way that the programs operate and get them up and running before we see some consistent billing coming through with the expectations of our grant and our fund restrictions, as well as the type of data that we need from them. So it just, I mean, it's basically the same thing. It just shows you the service that's being provided, funding source, contract amount, and total spent and percent spent. Are there any questions about this report for the expense report, the layout, or any of the columns that anyone has?
For those that are joining us online, you'll get this report in an email after the meeting in our typical follow-up report. As staff have reviewed the report, putting everything together, there weren't any significant spending issues that we noted. As you start looking through it, it'll be really important if you're looking at the percent spent that you also pay attention to the contract period, because they're not all the same. Some of these programs have funds that started a little bit earlier and go through the end of June. I think this one's a little bit more consistent than our last report that we had as far as the ending date for the contract or the fiscal time that we are reporting for you, because we were able to kind of make it look come together a little bit better for those odd fundings that we were receiving in their contract periods. So I just wanted to call that out to really make sure, and also to reiterate what Alyssa had said, is that if it's grant funded, then that funding is going to take priority over local funds. And our related funds typically had a much longer time to spend. So as you look further into the report, you might see programs that are very low in their spending versus what you would hope to see or what we would typically see in this time frame. With the COVID funds, we also added an extra column over on the right. So you'll see the full contract amount. You'll see the spending in the 6 months, which coincides with the amounts that are in green, and then their total contract spent. So, and that's what that percent spent is based on, is the total spending. So even if the program started in 2020, then it would go up. That's total spent is going to cover all of that.
And some of our providers, for example, Catholic Community Services at Bertha's shelter, they have 3 contracts with us that have ARPA funds, ESG COVID funds, and then the shelter grant funds. And based on the time frame that we are allowed to spend those funds, and if we're going to use or lose, we tell the providers which one to prioritize so that we can spend the most amount of money based on the time frame our funder has given us to spend them.
Alyssa, I think we have a couple of questions from the room.
Okay. And I'm not going to be able to hear them very well, so if you could repeat it for me when they ask.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. You made mention of a total contract spend to focus on the full contract period, COVID related expenditure. Does percent spent on the other pages, like for the financial wellness program acquired, is 35%? Is that for their contract period or report period?
That is for the fiscal year. So most of our programs, our regular ongoing programs, get an annual budget, but their contract might be a 2-year contract. We report the annual amounts here to kind of be consistent in that. Because we are seeing so many funds coming in, we work on the backside to deal with all of the different fiscal year ends from the different funds. So you guys don't have to. And then we just do that fiscal annual amount in their contracts. And that's what we report is a 1-year fiscal amount.
That's the county fiscal.
Yeah, the state fiscal year is the July through June. The county's fiscal year is calendar year.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so it's
a lot of fun.
So July through June is the fiscal year that we have in our contracts, which is what you see. And that's why this report is a 6-month and it's July 1 through December 31st.
For our regular funds, that'll be the percent spent for the 6 months. And then when we have the next meeting in November, you'll see the annual spending from July through June for that contract period. And fingers crossed, all of them are 100% or very close to it if we are doing what we're supposed to be doing or what we want to be doing. That's our hopes. And then, like Rebecca said, the COVID funds, we did total contract and total spent because they don't run on a state year and they're not as easily reportable. And it may give you an unrealistic view of what the contractor is doing and spending, because if they started in March and their contract ends in July, you would only see 1 month of spending on here for the COVID funds. So that's why we broke it out that way.
I'm just wondering if you can walk me through like the homeless outreach for share. That one it's at 2%, and then it looks like the reporting period ends at the end of next month. I think you've already explained this, but I'm just trying to walk like this is ongoing funds that you're allocating and state funding, so it's there on an ongoing basis. I'm trying to understand like
what page are you looking at?
So I'm looking on looks like the second page on the back of the first page. It's the third item down under a homeless crisis response system. We're at 2% spent of the allocation, but the reporting period ends at the end of next month.
And Share Outreach received a lot of COVID funding, and they also received local funding. The House Bill 2163 is what you're seeing being spent right there. And so they're just looking through and what are we going to lose and spending those dollars first and then moving into the other ones. And then, yes, these ones we will roll over.
Yeah, I believe this is a locally funded contract only. And like Rebecca said, they're receiving several other grant funds for this program. So those take priority because we can carry over our local funds. And I'm leaning in closer to my computer and pushing my headset against here so I can hear you guys the best I can. Like, did that answer your question?
Yes, and I would like to commend you on having a lot of really complicated information put in a pretty easy to understand format.
Oh, I appreciate that. We've had a lot of trial and error with too much information, not enough information. It's overwhelming. We don't understand. So we really worked hard to try to come up with a format that was easy to understand and you could look at it and see what was actually going on.
It's great. Can I just ask, go back to the first sheet you had on the revenue report? I don't think you need to look at the numbers. I just had a question. Under the prevention rent assistance program, we heard earlier that there's a new RFP coming through. Sounded somewhat similar. So if we had new RFP, would it add to these funds or would it become a separate line?
So this is the 4.2 million that Kayla mentioned that we've already received for that.
House
and
Bill
then
1277.
Okay.
Yeah, that's,
I didn't know if it was.
nope, that's the exact same one. But we've received those funds and so they are revenue. So we wanted to make sure we had captured it in our revenue report. And then, yes, those are the dollars that are going into the request for application, along with our projected, based on what Commerce has told us for the next 2 years in their biennium budget. That'll be in the request for application.
And they've added those funds into our current CHG SDG contract. And these are the only funds in that contract that end June 30th of this year that they are allowing us to carry over the full amount because they got such a late start and we had so much other funding. They are allowing us to carry over 100% of these funds.
Yeah, because of all of the Treasury funding and the emergency rent assistance funding that we received, they talked to the state legislation to allow us to have late starts in almost every county. Most of the counties have not started spending this new funding stream yet, like Clark County. Those that have started and they were doing it in conjunction with their other ones, really wish they hadn't. Based on just the differences in the fundings and the eligibility and all of those things. So they wish they would have waited like we did for starting this new program.
They'll have a whole pot to move into next year and validate.
And we
What did
they'll
she
have
say?
all of their funding, but it's just complicated to run two very similar programs with different eligibility requirements at this concurrently.
So these are CHG funds?
Yeah, well, yes. As in simplified terms, they coming through our consolidated homeless grant agreement with Commerce. Yes.
So it raises a different question. I'm looking at the policy board report yesterday. The council.
The action plan.
The action plan, yeah. And I saw CHG there. I wondered if there are two streams of CHG.
No, I haven't read the action plan, but when we do our action plan, we have to talk about the system also for our CDBG and home funds, our community development block grant and home investment partnership program that go into the action plan. There's usually a discussion about homelessness in that plan, and that's probably what you saw that was talking about it. But the funds are all through the CAAB through this one grant agreement.
It wasn't meant to go back and check.
Okay.
And our one CHG grant agreement includes the HEN funds, the CHF funds, the diversion funds, hotel lease and rapid rehousing. They gave us additional CHG funds, and now they've added eviction prevention. And I looked at our CHG grant, and I want to say maybe 8 to 10 years ago, the total grant amount was probably shy of $2 million. And right now our CHG SDG grant with the state is over $15 million. They just keep adding different streams of funding sources that follow those CHG guidelines.
I want to say it is one of the best pivot tables I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
It is a success. I'm going to take this to our finance people. See if they can that it's still.
We do consulting if you ever need. No, I'm kidding.
Do not put out my services,
No,
Alyssa.
no. Well, I was going to say for a small fee, but that's not true either. No.
You just got 2 contracts.
Okay, you got your acronyms on the last page.
Yes, and so I just pulled that up on the screen also so people can see. I do know that I missed one acronym and I apologize. At the very top of the report, the last column says BH/DD, which stands for Behavioral Health and Developmental Disability. So DD stands for Developmental Disabilities. We have funds in the CSBG Proviso grant that we got with that we are contracting with Community Foundation for the Southwest Washington. So we have Community Service Block Grant Proviso funds in that contract. And we also are partnering with 2 other units in our department, our behavioral health and our developmental disabilities. They've also put money into those into that contract. And that contract is really to help do capacity building for BIPOC organizations in the community. They do it's called the Social Justice and Resiliency Fund. And so there's just additional funding in there that we don't specifically oversee, but we did partner to try and reduce silos to accessing funds and make sure that we can get funds out into those BIPOC small organizations to really help with that capacity building there.
That's good news. The question is, which of these acronyms correspond to carryover? Funding sources permitted carryover as opposed to either lose?
We don't designate it because we don't know. Outside of local, so if it's a grant fund, we lose it. If it's a local fund, then we will keep it. And if you look at your revenue report, it will designate which ones are local versus state and federal. State and federal will lose, local we can retain and carry over.
And the only exception this time around are those eviction prevention funds because of the late start with that funding source. But normally it's a use or lose based on the spending period with our funder, whether it be state or federal. And can you go back to the revenue report really quick? Rebecca, I just wanted to say one more thing. When you look at, we scroll up to the House bill stuff. We collect and keep in-house 3 different House bills. It's 2060, 2163, and 1359. 2060 and 1359 are more restrictive and can be used on shelters, brick and mortar shelters, whereas 2163 is less restrictive. So I also do focus on spending those 2060 and 1359 first, because we can use 2163 on more funds. And if you also look, our collections are down. What we forecasted and projected is about $2 million less than we normally get.
I know we're running really short on time. Are there any last minute questions?
Yeah, my question was, is the word grant on the expenditure report indicated use or lose in the acronyms?
Under the acronyms?
Which of these column headings are use or lose and which are carried over?
So if you compare it to the revenue report and you look at the every one of these titles in the funding portion is available on the revenue report. And then you can notice that if it's a state, federal, or a local.
If it starts with HB, it's local.
State and federal are grants.
Grants, correct.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
One other question. So this is a expense report for a specific period, and there's nothing on this sheet that tells you when that.
It's at the top in the heading, and so it says it's a 6-month report for
Individually, like the community foundation, for instance, they said 7 months. Does that mean
that's
we don't know when the end date?
The contract period. will show you.
correct? Because it would be overwhelming to have that also. So we're only focused on the fiscal year.
I was just.
Except for the COVID funds, because.
I was missing.
Rebecca, there is a contract period column for every program. So like the report actually lists at the very top, it has the period of the report. But if you look at the second column from left to right, that will have the contract period for each program. So you have both of those pieces of information.
Yeah, so if you look under, I think I need to. So if you look at the regular funding here, So our homeless crisis, you'll see organization and program name and then annual report period.
Yes.
If you look at the COVID funds, that column header has changed. So it's organization and program and then contract period.
Yeah, I get that. I think it's because some are 2 years, right? Some are more, it's just a little bit.
All the COVID is going to say contract period. All the regular funds will be just the fiscal year.
And I was just checking when we had.
I'm looking at the time and I think we need to move along just to give our speakers time to give us an update. Is that okay?
Yeah, and feel free to reach out via email or phone calls to Rebecca and or myself, and we can go through any questions, comments, or concerns that you have.
And with just 30 seconds, I just want to let the board know you'll receive in your follow-up packet these additional charts
and
that we
graphs.
put together that just kind of looks at all of the fun. There's a couple of slides about the expenditures, breaking them down into types of services, and a couple of them that are focused on, this one compares COVID versus regular funds by different type of service. And then we have revenue funds broken down if they're local, state, or federal. And then this final report breaks it down if it's community in our bigger title, program areas, community action, homeless crisis response system, and COVID. And you'll see that in the PowerPoint that's sent out after the meeting.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for the thoroughness of the reports and how clear everything is. It looks great. And I'm going to turn over to Sam and Jamie for an affordable housing update from the city. Can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Sam.
Can't hear you, Sam.
Jamie, are you available to give your portion of the update and while Sam works on her mic situation? Thank you.
I do not have a ton of update. I know that there was an article that came out, I believe yesterday, regarding the delay in construction for the downtown Safe State community. That's literally just because we have more work to do on that site than we have the others. So we have to put the job out to bid, which, as you all know, is a process. So we're looking at later in the summer for that opening. We have a new heart outreach position that is open at this moment. You know anyone, or if you were interested. And I think that might be about it. Hope Village, which is Site 2, just celebrated its 1-year anniversary, so we should be getting a 1-year report from them sometime soon. I think that's actually all I have.
Can you remind me where Hope Village is?
Hope Village is the Safe Stay that's on 4th Plain near Stapleton at the old Golden Skate property.
Thank you, Jamie. I think Sam called in. So can we hear you now, Sam? Nope.
That's why I called in.
There we go.
I do not know why this always happens to me. I tested my system as I was joining. I'm sorry. And thank you. And thank you. I'm glad I joined early to see those financial reports, because that is amazing how much you're managing and trying to so all those comprehensive numbers were incredible. So my updates, May 8th, we have our public hearing for the CDBG and home funds for 2023. We'll take that to council to approve our awards that I shared previously with this board. And then May 22nd, we'll have our Affordable Housing Fund awards for rental assistance and shelter programs on the consent agenda. So both of those should be approved this month. In June, we'll open our Affordable Housing Fund applications for housing production or preservation. So these are capital construction projects. We just have a small amount of funding to award for the 2023 levy that will close out our previous $6 million a year levy. And in 2024, we'll start the new $10 million a year for 10-year affordable housing levy. So yes, we'll commit the rest of that funding for 2023 in a June process. In July, we expect to have our multifamily tax exemption program updated, and we'll be sharing that with council to change that program to expand it around the city and clarify some of the tax exemption qualifications. And just as a last general update, we've started working on our housing action work plan, which is working with all of the departments within the city to see how we can affect housing development broadly through all areas that we can affect. So fees, the processes, the zoning code, the comprehensive plan is involved, all sorts of resources and brainstorming about how we can build more units and get housing more affordable in Vancouver. That's what we've been working on. I think that's all my updates.
I actually remembered one more
Thank
thing
you
that
for your patience.
I think it's exciting news. We have potentially a new provider coming to town, new to our area, not new to providing. So on May 22nd, we have potential contracts for the operations of Safe Stays 4 and 5, and we're looking to award those to Do Good Multnomah. And they operate a couple of villages, tiny villages, in both Multnomah and Clackamas counties. They do permanent supportive housing. They've got rental assistance, so a whole variety of things. And I believe they historically started out as serving veterans, but they have expanded into kind of general population. So we're very excited to bring some new folks up here.
Great, very exciting. Thank you for the updates. We have just a couple minutes for public forum.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak?
All right.
I can say hi.
What was that? We can't hear very well. What was that?
Oh, I was saying I can introduce myself to everyone because I'm hoping to join your board, but I'm not sure. I'm an elected official from District 4. I'm on the Mount Pleasant School Board. And we're still kind of ascertaining if I'm eligible to be on the board because I live in Skamania County, but I'm elected by Clark County. So our school district spans borders. So I'm hoping to join you all. I'm glad to be here. My name is Tanis Morris. I have a background in nonprofit work, and I work now in business development for an executive search firm that specializes in creating equitable leadership tables at organizations around the Northwest and the country. So I resonate with the work. I was very impressed with the Janice presentation, and I'll just say I have also been a grant writer, and I've used the CAAB report for many years. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm girling, but thank you for having me today.
Thanks for joining us today. All right. Well, thank you so much. I will end the meeting at 10:29. Appreciate all of you for attending and your engagement. And we will see you at our next meeting on Wednesday, July 5th. Thank you so much. Anything else, Rebecca, need to add?
No, thank you so much, everyone.
Rebecca,